Today we're going to talk about the no contact rule. Specifically, what happens if you fail it twice? Can it still work? And if you stick around to the end of this video, I'm going to show you my 3 best tips for not breaking a no contact rule, because that is one of the most difficult things you can do if you're in the midst of a no contact rule. But first, if you haven't already and are considering trying to get an ex back, my biggest recommendation for you is to hop over to my website, www.exboyfriendrecovery.com, and take my special quiz there. I've designed the quiz to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting an ex back. It's an approximate number, so do not take it as it's the ultimate chance of getting your ex back. It's just to give you an idea on if you should be going forward with this process or not. So if you're interested in taking this quiz, all you have to do is simply look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on that link. It will take you right to the quiz where you can answer the questions and get your answers. All right, let's answer the age-old question on if you fail the no contact rule, will it work the second time that you try it? The short answer is yes, it can, but it will lose a little something. Now, one thing you need to realize as you're implementing a no contact rule is that we have found through our own independent research that 8 out of every 10 people who will try a no contact rule out on their ex and are trying to get their exes back will fail the no contact rule. But what does that mean? What does failing a no contact rule constitute? Well, quite simply, it means you have committed yourself to doing a no contact rule where you are not going to respond or reach out to any of your ex's attempts at communication. Failing that no contact rule means simply that you break that rule. You either reach out to them with a text or respond to one of their text messages, assuming that's the line of communication that they're trying to contact you with. Now, we have a pretty strict protocol for what happens if you do this. The rules are pretty simple. Let's say 30-day no contact rule, and around day 13 or 14, you reach out to your ex because you have to know what's going on with him. You've technically broken the no contact rule, which means you need to start over from square one. That means you have to go back and do 30 more days of no contact for it to be extremely effective. But what do you do if you break the no contact rule and try it again 5 times, 6 times, 7 times? What then? Can it still be effective? Well, I like to talk to my clients and tell them, think of it kind of like a chart. Let's say you try the no contact rule out and get through it the very first time. Chances are it's going to be 100% effective. You're going to get the most out of it that you possibly can. But let's say you fail it the second time. Well, then it's going to lose a little bit of its effectiveness. Not totally, but let's say instead of being 100% effective, it will be 90% effective. And then let's say you fail it 3 times. All of a sudden you're down to 70% effectiveness. 5 times, well, now you're down to 50% effectiveness, and so on and so forth. As you can see, each time you have to restart the no contact rule over because you failed it, it will lose effectiveness. It will not react the same way to an ex. Now, this means that if you're in the midst of a no contact rule, and I'm looking at all of you in my private Facebook support group, if you're in the midst of a no contact rule, your number 1 priority is to make sure that you do not break the no contact rule, except in the situations where you have to, like if you live together or that you have a child together with your ex. In those circumstances, you have to alter the no contact rule. But let's assume that you're in the general no contact rule. Your job is to stay in no contact at all costs, and I'm going to give you my 3 best tips on how to do just that. Tip number 1, change your ex's name in your phone. It's best to think of this as your first line of defense. Essentially, if you go into your phone, reprogram your ex's name to do not contact or do not respond, every time he reaches out to you or you're thinking of reaching out to him, you'll have a reminder staring you in the face that you are not supposed to reach out or respond to your ex. So if he reaches out to you and you get the text message, you can think to yourself, not supposed to respond. It's a pretty simple reminder, and I have found that it's not as effective as tips 2 and 3. Tip number 2, block your ex's phone number. Where tip 1 was all about the low end of the spectrum, tip 2 was all about the extreme end of the spectrum. Essentially what you're doing here is you are blocking your ex's phone number to remove any temptation for any text message that may have come in. Now, doing this, you will limit yourself a little bit because one of the interesting aspects of the no contact rule is being able to know if your ex is reaching out to you. But if you know you're that type of person that will definitely respond no matter how much I tell you or any of the peers tell you not to do it, the second you see your ex's name pop up on your phone, maybe blocking his number is a good idea. Now, it's important to remember here that we're not blocking his number forever, we're just blocking his number during the extent of your no contact period. If you determine that you're only going to do a 30-day no contact rule, that means you will have blocked his number for 30 straight days, and at the end of the no contact rule, you will unblock it. Tip number 3, erase their number and give it to a trusted friend. Think of this as the in-between tip, where tip 1 was on the low end of the spectrum and tip 2 was on the high end of the spectrum or extreme end. Tip 3 is kind of in the middle between the two. What you're going to be doing here is erasing your ex's phone number and then giving that phone number to a trusted friend. You're going to instruct that trusted friend to give you their phone number back when you are done with your no contact period. So essentially, you're going to have some form of internal control here because even if you erase your ex's phone number, so who has their ex's phone number memorized? Most people don't, but assuming that you don't have it memorized, maybe this is the way to go. You know that you won't respond to whatever random number comes your way, and you know also that your trusted friend will hold you accountable. So those are my 3 best tips for staying true in the middle of the no contact period. Hey, thank you so much for getting to the end of this video. If you haven't already, make sure you take my X Recovery Chances quiz. Doing so is simple. You just look in the description link below this YouTube video and click on the link you see there. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you also subscribe to this channel so that you can get updates anytime I come out with a new video or respond to any of your comments. I'll see you guys on the other side.